It's interview time, and we are grateful to have with us Neave Ross-Wallace, an expert on mindfulness. Neave is a registered mindfulness teacher, a Gestalt therapist, and parenting coach. Over the past 25 years, she has worked as an early childhood educator, family counsellor, adult educator, parent mentor, and mindfulness teacher. Neave has been practicing mindfulness since 1992, and her passion in life is to introduce as many people as possible to the benefits of mindfulness. Welcome, Neave, to Goals and Growth.
Thank you.
Neave, can you please explain what a mindfulness teacher does and the training you received?
Okay, well, when we talk about mindfulness, it's not really a simple thing to talk about or describe, because it really is a way of being and a way of living, and it's something that we build the capacity towards being more alive in our lives. So really what I do is I create environments in which people start to practice mindfulness and then take up hopefully a daily practice. And what it helps them with is the ability to meet our life in a way that we are more able to respond to what is occurring rather than reacting, or not maybe noticing the impact of life and starting to sort of hide or get rid of or try not feel the impact that is actually occurring. So it's really about how to meet life with more equanimity and balance, and it's kind of about being okay when things are not okay. Yeah.
You mentioned just before we started recording that you had your own moment, I guess you'd say,
Yes.
this morning.
Yes.
Something that could potentially, for many of us, obviously with dear pets, could have been really quite scary.
Yeah, I looked at my dog this morning and his eyes were completely clouded over. So that's actually something that's happened overnight. And when I looked at him, I was like, wow, what on earth is going on here? And I noticed my whole reaction. So I noticed the tightening in my belly and my breathing being shallow, and then the thoughts starting to arise. What is going to happen? Is he blind? Like, what is going on? And then my mindfulness practice just kicks in, because I'm really patterned to just stop, notice all of that, and take a deep breath. And then when I do that, I have this clarity in the moment to just look at him, to start to figure out, can he still see me? I can see he's alive and he's happy and his tail's wagging. And I think, okay, I know, I'm going to take him to the vet and I'll find out what's going on. So it's like I don't have to go into this big panic. I can just acknowledge my full experience and have this ability to sort of hold all of that in my awareness, and then take the next step that's kind of going to work best for me. Yeah.
A feeling of control.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I started hearing about mindfulness around 10 years ago, but I can still get a bit confused. Just what is mindfulness? I think you've started to answer that question. And how does it compare to meditation?
Yeah. Well, mindfulness is a form of meditation. So there are many forms of meditation. You might do visualization meditation. But mindfulness is quite a specific practice, and it's about paying attention in a particular way to what is occurring in any moment in your field of experience. So we're particularly interested in noticing sensations throughout the body, and then noticing what we're taking in through the five senses. We're interested in noticing the thoughts that are arising, or the beliefs, and also the emotions that come with all of this. And so we build this capacity to really touch into our full experience. So rather than living out of a patterned way of being, we're actually fully alive in the moment with what is occurring. And then, as I was saying, you have more ability to hold that experience in your awareness without being run by it immediately. Yeah, it's a very powerful way of living.
So you're observing more than reacting, would that be?
Yeah. And then you're not trying to shut your experience down. So say for me, I used to be overwhelmed by life, and I didn't know how to cope with the thoughts, the emotions, the life experience, the feeling in the body. And when you grow this capacity to really be awareness itself, then you start to be bigger than your experiences that overwhelm you. And you have this centered, more balanced place to stand in life, which is fantastic.
It would give you confidence, I presume.
Absolutely. Like you have a place to return to, and it's within yourself. So you don't have to go and get something. You already have this ability to settle into this place, this way of being. Yeah.
A friend of mine gets easily stressed before a sporting event. I have heard that breathing exercises might help. Could you give me a few tips for my friend to help him reduce his anxiety?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things is to notice that you're anxious. Yeah. So often when we feel an uncomfortable physical sensation and the mind starts to tell us this is not okay, we know that what we resist persists. And so one of the first things is to just simply accept that this is how you feel and accept that this is what's happening. And that has a tendency to reduce the experience and the anxiety. And then really it's to come more into a sensing being mode. So starting to notice the breath in particular. So often anxiety is produced through shallow breathing. So if you've been practicing mindfulness, you will automatically just lock into taking a deeper breath, and that breath will move the chest and right down to the belly. And when we do this, we start to switch on the parasympathetic nervous system. So this is the calming system of the body. And
rather than fight or flight.
Rather than fight or flight, yeah. And in the fight and flight mode, of course, we are reactive and we're generally holding tension in the body. We're holding the belly tight and the breathing shallow. And the body's built to diaphragm breathe. We want the whole body, the whole, the chest, the belly, everything, the diaphragm moving with the breath. So it's really, once we notice what's happening and we can acknowledge it and be okay with that, then we have this choice. Right, in this moment, I'll feel myself. I might bring my awareness down to my feet. I think I'm standing here and I'm grounded in my feet. And then bring more awareness to the body and then let the breath move the body.
So that acceptance isn't necessarily agreeing with the feeling. It's simply appreciating that it's there.
Yes. It's not fighting with it either. You know, we often, we're programmed to not be okay with discomfort. It's what keeps the species alive, yeah? So we feel something uncomfortable and we want to get rid of it. But as we know, life comes along and we experience things that are uncomfortable. And really it's our capacity to live through these experiences, be okay with this experience. We know all experience arises and falls. And if we resist that experience, we tend to make it stay for longer. We start to fight it. We feed it, we give it energy. Yeah. And so this kindness and this compassion for ourselves in our experience is a really powerful way of decreasing the experience.
And the anxiety in this particular case.
And the anxiety in this case, yeah. Yeah, that's probably
Thank you.
amazing.
I often struggle with keeping focus on a particular subject for any length of time. Could you please tell me how mindfulness can help with keeping me focused?
Well, it's just like going to the gym. We go to the gym to build muscle, yeah, and we go, every day or every second day, and we go for a few years, and we build this ability. And practicing mindfulness is exactly the same. Like a daily practice, we know of 10-15 minutes a day, we'll start to make some major changes. And so we practice becoming aware, staying in the present moment, connecting with the breath, connecting with the body, noticing as we do that, that's our intention to stay with, say, body and breath sensations, and then we notice the mind takes us away, and it's not a problem for that to happen because the nature of the mind is to think, but we come back again. And so what I tend to find with people when they first start practicing is they can only stay with their present moment experience in the body and breath for a small amount of time before they're gone, and they might be gone for a long time into their thinking. and then they'll realise and come back. And the longer you practice, the more quickly you come back. You notice, I've gone, I'm in the future, and then I come back to this present moment. Yeah.
So it's that mental training, as you were mentioning before.
Absolutely.
The equivalent of doing laps around the park or something like this.
Yeah,
it's building up that endurance.
Yes, and it becomes networked into us. So it becomes part of what is occurring in the body and mind. We are patterned beings, and we are patterning ourselves to be present, and for the mind not to take us over.
We all lead busy lives, and it seems sometimes difficult to just stop and rest, to reflect. We can feel that we are like the hamster on the spinning wheel. What are some of the ways that have helped you and those you have taught?
Well, definitely a daily practice. Like, we know from research that if you practice each day, you will just automatically start to connect with your body and breath, which
Becomes
puts
a
you
habit.
immediately into the present moment, which is where we are living from. We're in the present moment. We've got to keep bringing ourselves back to the present moment. Some of the ways that I've worked in the past, especially when I first started practicing mindfulness, was to have a practice of noticing the sensations in my feet. So whenever I was in a situation in which I felt uncomfortable, I would just bring all of my awareness to my feet. I could feel my feet flat on the floor, feel the sensations, and then I would notice the sensations in my big toes. So I'd even get more detailed. And it's not like, oh yeah, I can feel my feet, oh yeah, I can feel my toes. It's like, right here, right now, what is the sensation? So it's very specific. And I'm doing it in a way in which I say, this is the first time I've ever done this. So in mindfulness we call this beginner's mind. So I'm not remembering how it was last time I connected with my feet or my big toes. I'm saying, today in this moment, what is the sensation? And when I do that, I can't be worrying about anything else. I'm not thinking about anything. I've come into my sensing being mode.
You're not worrying about what it's going to be like in the future.
Exactly.
You're not ruminating about the past, or it didn't go well in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very useful. People might be wondering what mindfulness has to do with creating and achieving goals, along with developing toward our better selves, our personal growth. How would you respond to that?
Oh, it's a fantastic practice for success and goals. It trains us to do one thing at a time. So, the mind, as we know, will take us into the future and past, which may be what we're choosing to do, but it may not be. So we create an ability, or we build an ability to be more present and stay more focused with what we are choosing to do in that moment. We know that it increases the amount of connections in the neocortex and the executive brain, or what we call the wise brain. So our capacity to overview situations, to understand ourselves and others, our ability for creative thought is enhanced. It's an amazing process.
A deeper awareness of a particular subject that you're focusing on.
Absolutely. You can remember and put new and old knowledge together. And we don't get taken over by our reactive patterning. So we don't panic. Or if we feel anxious about the future, we can notice that that's happening. We can bring ourselves back. Because our point of power is always in the present moment. And when we start to think about the future, a lot of anxiety is produced by thinking about the future, because we have no power over the future. We only have power in the moment that we find ourselves. We can certainly prepare for the future, but we need to keep our focus in the present moment.
And it helps, I presume, reducing distractions. For example, if you've done that endurance, the mental focus, the training on being present, which will allow you to probably be more centred around a particular subject, that one thing, as you mentioned, rather than constantly flitting from different thoughts and so on.
Absolutely. And there's a huge power in the present moment. I mean, you can't really talk about it until you actually experience it. But the creativity that can arrive when you are really fully present is amazing. I mean, things come to you that you wouldn't even imagine you would put together. Yeah, but it has to be felt and experienced.
And practiced.
And practiced, yeah.
I know a lot of people who have this impression of forms of meditation being that classic position, sitting on your legs on the floor, maybe wearing a particular robe or chanting a particular Om. Is there a preferred position for meditation to perform mindfulness? Is there a certain environment you need to practice it, such as a silent, peaceful area?
Well, really, mindfulness is synonymous with wakefulness. So taking up a position to sit in formal practice in which you feel awake. Often sitting with a straight back, so a sense of uplift in the posture, and then allowing the shoulders and arms to settle and the legs to let go and the feet to be firmly on the floor if you're sitting on a chair. And having a sense of being present. Yeah, so mindfulness is not about becoming floaty and relaxing and, spacing out. It's about sharpening your experience of the present moment and staying with the present moment. So yeah, you can do it lying down, you can do it standing up, you can do it walking, you can do it in any activity you can create as a mindfulness practice. And if you're doing formal practice, a quiet space can be good. But it's not like in the 8-week course that I teach. We do mindful eating practice. So here's an everyday activity that we can slow down and bring all of our focus to our full experience while we're sitting there with others.
And you wouldn't imagine meditators eating.
No.
For example. So,
yeah. And we're definitely moving away from that image, which is kind of exciting. I mean, mindfulness in particular is for the Western mind, It's contemplative practices that have been brought in a way that we can utilise in our lives that are really useful for us. So yeah, it's not about going away into the cave, although you might go away into a cave. Yeah.
Excellent. And that ability to be able to utilise those skills, those practices, pretty much anywhere.
Absolutely.
When you're conscious.
Yeah.
I think it gives it a great deal of power.
Yeah. And it can be a 30-second practice. Just a conscious breath. Just a feeling of coming out of the mind and down into the body. To notice what it is like to be present in any moment. You might be talking with someone. You might be standing somewhere. You might just engage your awareness in all of your senses for a moment. Yeah, it's a great relief to us to be able to do that.
You mentioned about the breathing. I was just thinking of one of my young children preparing for a running race just last weekend. And she was saying, I feel so anxious, I feel so anxious. And I said, just breathe, and as you're breathing, it's a nice, big, long, deep breath. As you're breathing, think, rather than I'm anxious, is that energy that anxiousness can give you, is I'm excited. She did it a couple of times, and she said, I'm feeling mostly excited. Still a little bit anxious, but mostly excited. I said, well, that's a good change.
Yeah. And it's lovely. I mean, to language something, to language an experience, we know that it helps reduce the intensity of that experience. To have someone else with you is another lovely thing. And then to have this idea, that I can just take a breath and see if this makes a change for me. Yeah.
Something so simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has mindfulness helped you in improving your focus and attention?
Huge. Mindfulness has been a huge help for me. Yeah, I'm a very sensitive soul, and really I came to mindfulness in my early 30s, and I was overwhelmed as a mother with 2 young children, and I thought, I don't know how you do this, this is too much for me, and I didn't know how to stop talking or moving. I never really stopped, and I had social anxiety, I was always worrying. I was worrying about what would happen, what did people think of me. I just want to laugh when I think about it now. I'm just not like that anymore.
You've moved on.
I'm settled. I'm just settled in my life and in my experience, and I am bigger than what happens to me. Yeah. So whatever comes, I have a way of meeting it, that it doesn't actually overwhelm me. Yeah. I feel it. I'm fully alive, but I'm not overwhelmed.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And finally, what is the one tip that you would give people to improve their mental focus and aid their relaxation? Or maybe 2 tips.
Yeah. As a mindfulness teacher, I would say, if you could, to do a program. Yeah. So there's a lot of mindfulness apps around which are fantastic. What a great resource. And I have free apps available on my website. But when you do a course and you commit to a 4 or 8 week program, you get an overview and you get an ability to be supported in everything that arises as you practice, because stuff happens. And so many people say to me, I've tried it and it didn't work. Well, there's no such thing as doesn't work. There is, I tried it and this is what happened. And then it's like, and this is what you do with what happens. Yeah. So it's a wonderful practice, but it has a depth to it that you need support to reach that depth, and it's well worth it. It's so worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we try and do things with maybe something free,
Yes.
and we get what we pay for.
Yeah, yeah. And it's great if it's helpful, that's fantastic. But what I tend to notice is that it's not something people can sort of really take with them into their life. They're okay while they're listening to the app, but then how does it build this capacity to be okay with what is occurring in your life? Yeah, it's an awareness training. Yeah.
And training, just like with fitness, you need a buddy or a coach or an instructor or something like this. It's going to make it much more likely for it to be successful.
You want some structure. You want some structure. Yeah. You don't want to go to the gym and just do a little bit of that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that and gee, that was good. What are you doing? What's your overview?
How important is it, I suppose, really?
Yeah.
What are you willing to invest?
Yeah. And I say to everyone, just grab it. Come and learn and grab it. And you can talk about mindfulness till the cows come home. Nothing happens until you start practicing. And that practice needs to be daily, really. And we know that it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the change to happen in the body and mind. So we are actually rewiring ourselves, and we are evolving ourselves. I think it's an amazing process.
Sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom
Cool.
and advice on mindfulness and focus. Thank you, Neave.
Thank you.